Welcome to the Uncensored Self Podcast. I am your host, Ryann Gillen, and on this show, ambitious women learn how to create a life they're obsessed with, without the hustle, without the grind, without torturing ourselves, and without following anybody else's rules. This podcast is all about creating our own rules, owning our identity as creator, and hitting every single goal we set for ourselves. Together, we're redefining success on our terms and building lives that look as good as they feel. Let's dive in. All right, guys, welcome back. I am really excited about today's conversation with yet another new friend. You guys know that I like to meet all my friends on the internet, and these days I like to make all my friends on the internet through real estate. And so Bethany DeMaggio is an agent over in St. Louis, and I say over in St. Louis, I'm Kansas City, and it's funny, we were connected through our friends in Texas. So we're like, you guys are like the same, right? Like it's in the same place, and we're like, no, we're actually like 4.5 hours apart. But I got an opportunity to meet Bethany and hear her story, and I'm just really excited to share it with all of you. So Bethany, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ryan. So good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you've been a real estate agent for 9 years, and so obviously this was not your first career. But what I loved when I first heard your story was kind of how you chose real estate and how it was not the safest bet at the time, but you did it. So will you share with us your story a little bit?
Sure. I'd be happy to. Thanks for asking. So I started in real estate. I shouldn't say I've been in real estate officially for almost 9 years.
Okay.
However, I've loved it since back when I was right out of college. So I've always loved homes. I've loved historic homes. I always loved going to open houses, and I don't know, I'm probably a lurker and kind of
Every real estate agent's worst nightmare. That's you.
Right. Especially back in the old days, because like they did, like it was different then. But I loved it. But I also was in medical sales and pharmaceutical sales for straight out of graduate school. So that was how, and those were kind of golden handcuffs because it was really safe. And I loved my doctors, their staff. I loved my coworkers, and the stability was really great.
And it's good money, right?
Yes.
Medical sales is a very high paying sales gig as far as sales gigs go.
100% money and stability and cars. I mean, I didn't register a car for like 10 years because they would just give me new cars, and they would, so it wasn't like The Price is Right. I didn't win them, but like you would get a new car every couple of years.
It's got a beautiful visual of what that looked like. You get a car. No, that's Oprah. Sorry, I'm doing it wrong.
And everybody's running to them. I know. It was like an Impala. It was not like, it was not, it was no. I think the best one I got was a Ford Escape. And I think I had to win an award. But all that to say, but it was great because it was solid and it was predictable. And my ex-husband had his own business in contracting, carpentry, and I was stability. I was benefits. I was all the things, and he was doing really well. And we loved homes. We loved buying homes. We loved selling homes. And like I said, I would have loved to have made it a career, but I was the one who just kept things like, he was able to do his business. And so as time unfolded and we ended up divorcing, my daughter was a newborn, and we separated, and our divorce was not quick, and it was not easy. And in that time I went back into sales. I actually I went into a different kind of sales for a couple of years before I went back to medical sales. And so I've always been in sales. I mean, that's just what I do. I sell things.
Yeah.
Like I said, back in the day, I had loved houses, but I couldn't walk away from my steady gig. So fast forward years, I've been divorced for several years. I have another relationship that is very serious. And before we decided, when my sales career kind of came to a place where I had to decide whether I had some companies had downsized, surgical lines had gotten acquired. And so at this point I had to figure out where I was going to go. And my best friend said, "You've been putting off, getting a real estate license for 15 years. Like, this is the first time that you are not 100% alone, taking care of your kids." Because I had been raising my kids 100% alone at that point for probably about 7 years. And so at the time I spoke to my ex, and we agreed that it was a great idea. Like, now is a great time to get your real estate license. And it's not even 2 months after I did that, we decided it was not a great time to be together anymore. And so my life changed significantly because I was back 100% solo with and I'm glad I didn't know then what I know now, because
Sure.
I don't know if I would have taken a jump to do a brand new career that is
Right.
100% commission. And
Right.
I'd come from making significant money. So to go back to making $0 and have to
Mhm.
build a new career up again, that was very daunting. And I think if I would have known, I probably would have gone back safe and gone into some sort of medical or orthopedic, like some sort of sales in that field again. But I didn't. And at that time, it was awful. I had to find a new place to live and keep my kids in their school district. And it was very humbling because I was not making $1 million, because when you're first year real estate, that you don't make $1 million. So that's a spoiler, I'm sure, for a lot of people, but you don't.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I ended up through college and graduate school, I waited tables. And so I ended up going back and working waiting tables. And so it was very humbling to do that, 3 or 4 nights a week, because I believed that I could build real estate, and I knew that I loved it and I wanted to, but I also needed to like take care of my kids and feed them. And so that lasted for about 6 months. And I was so grateful because I had a great place to work, and it was, if you're going to do it, it was wonderful, but it was hard to do full-time real estate and then wait tables until, late at night, and you'd be closing and then have to get up and, and at that time, my daughter was, I think by this time she was probably 5 or 6. So she was in school, but
Right.
they're still little.
Of
They were
course. Yeah.
still young. And then taking them to showings, after school. I mean, it was a lot.
Well, not to mention the part that sorry to interrupt you. I want to hit on this because what you just said, you're like, I was waiting tables to make ends meet, right? Like that is, I think, a very normal part of people's stories, but it's not the part that winds up on the Instagram reel, right? Like it's not the part that people are like, oh, after I sold that X dollar listing, then I went and waited tables because it's not going to close for 45 days and I'm not going to see a dime of that money, like nobody tells that part of the story. And that's why, and not to mention, like you said, coming from a successful career, like I want to know, and I don't know if you even remember, like how do you keep your self-worth together, right? Like how do you have the confidence to show up and sell houses when you're probably dying a little bit on the inside because this is probably not how you imagined it was going to look?
No, it was embarrassing because, I mean, some of those surgeons and physicians who I had called on and who had relationships for years, they came in and looked at me and said, "What in the hell are you doing here?" And,
Right.
and that, to have to go from being to being colleagues of some kind to,
Right.
in a support system to them, to serving them food,
Yeah.
that was a lot. And, I think I don't, I think I don't dwell, I just don't dwell on when things are kind of awful. I don't take the time and the energy to sit there and sit in it, because it's not going to work. Like that's not getting me anywhere in life. I mean, there's just so many hard things. I just thought I know that at the end of the day, I knew that if I would not stop working and I worked harder than everybody else, that I'd eventually get out of the spot I was in. I didn't know when, but I knew that it was just a factor of work and time. And I also have 3 kids who are watching. And for me, it's not optional to fail. When people say all the time, they're like, "Oh, I could never do what you did." And I'm like, "Yeah, you could. If you were in my position and you had to feed 3 kids and figure shit out, you would do it. You would
Right.
just figure it out." And maybe they would, or maybe they would. I don't know. But
Right.
that was to me what it was. And I knew I could be successful because I have been. I mean, and so it was just a moment. And I have my friends and my family never stopped like cheering me on and supporting me. So without, oh, I don't want to cry about it. Oh, that'll be bad.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
did. When I didn't believe in myself, they did. And so that's where, I mean, I think whenever things go badly, I've been very fortunate. My kids are fortunate because like I said, our network is so strong, and they are so wonderful that, whether it was, showing up to babysit for me when I needed a babysitter, for a showing, or whether it's coming home and finding groceries on my front porch, it shows up, and God is good. So I knew that. And so I don't remember crying.
Well,
So it's been a long
sorry, I
time.
didn't mean to make you
I
cry. I just
know.
I just
No,
think that
so
that's so like
that's how I continued on. And that's
Right.
how, because they didn't let me forget, like when I started to doubt that I was the shit, like they reminded me.
Mm.
And
Yes.
and they still do. And
That's
so
so good.
yeah, so I think and I'm very fortunate because the business was steady, and it does build, and it always, and it has, and I had great people sort of mentoring me when I
Mm.
started, who were
Right.
very gracious with their time and their treasure and teaching me how to do this well,
Yeah.
and how to use, kind of, because I do think all the things that I did before, they made me really good at what I do now,
Yes.
because it's transfer. I mean, caring for people well and serving them well is not industry specific. And
Right.
so in anything that you sell, I
Mm-hmm.
do believe that if your priority is to prioritize whoever that is, whether it's a surgeon or whether it's a home buyer or whatever it is, if your goal is how do I serve them well and exceed their expectations, then that will pay off in the end. And so, and the money will always come at some point. I
Nice.
don't, you don't know when, but it
Sure.
will if you keep doing it,
Yeah.
if you have the right intention, right? And so, and that it did, for 2 years I was on a team, and that was I think it kind of like a paid internship, because you give up money, but I feel like when you align yourself with the right people and you're in a new industry, it was a great place to learn, and they were so gracious and good, and and got to do a lot of deals, and it's an industry that you can't be good at it until it's like flying a plane. It's like hours. You just have to log deals because everyone is different, and that's how you learn how to do it. So, and then I went out on my own after 2 years, and I haven't looked back. And every year's been better than the last.
That's amazing.
So yeah, so it's a great place to be.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And like I said, that was really a big part of, because when I talked to Bethany, I was like, I'd really like to tell your story. She's like, it's not that interesting. And I'm like, but I think that it is, because again, and I say this every time, guys, I bring you an interview or a conversation with somebody, that we all have this picture in our head of what we think other people are dealing with, right? And we think that we're special, and not that you're not special, but like we've all got shit, right? Like whether it is, being a single mom or ending a relationship or, diving in both feet to 100% commission gig or whatever that is. Like one of the things you said before we hit record, as you said, like, it hasn't been linear. Like, what does that mean to you? Because I know what that means to me, but I'd love to hear what you mean by that. Like, your success was not linear, but like you said, every year's been better
Yeah.
than the last. What does that mean to you?
Well, for me, I mean, every year has been better. I haven't gone backwards, but it is. But I think in those years, like some months are amazing, and then you have months where you're like, so I guess I will not make money for 7 weeks. I don't know. I mean, like, and you'll have so many times where like your deals are clicking, everything is like firing on all cylinders, and then all of a sudden you have like you have a bunch of them that just everything blows up and you can't control it. And I think that there are so many business lessons in that, as far as like saving for a rainy day, like being a good steward of your money, like certain things that play, like there was a lot of learning for me, and there still is a lot of learning for me in business, because my majors were in science. I mean, that's how I ended up in medical sales. I mean,
Okay.
I've got science for days, and I'll talk to a wall. So apparently, so that's why pharmaceuticals works, so in the same sense that it wasn't linear in the fact that there's a lot of times, and even now, like I will tell you, like I know I mentioned this earlier, I had the best quarter ever at the end of last year, and I've had the worst first quarter of this year that I've had in years. But it's not defining this year, because I'm still going to crush this year. I've had to actively, like, just fight to keep my momentum in my head, because the noise around me is strong, and it's sometimes deafening. And I think so in real estate and in business, any entrepreneur, I think to know that, it can be 2 steps forward and 7 steps back. It can be 6 steps forward, 1 step back, but it's a dance, and it is not like you do not just keep climbing your little mountain.
Sure.
And there are times where you plateau, and then you've got to figure, and you're constantly thinking like, what do I have to, like, how do I tweak to now, weight loss, you got to figure out what do I do now to,
Yep.
to see improvement at this point. And so that has been, for me, it has been when other people have, gotten scared and thought that the, economy was going to they were sort of COVID. They were being hesitant. They wanted to, they weren't putting money into their business. I just started pouring gas on the fire because I'm like, this is when you put the pedal to the metal, is when other people are pulling back, you go full forward.
Amen.
And I started investing in my business and myself, and I started treating my business like a bit. I'm not as a self-employed, like, because I was self-employed for a long time, and until my mind shifted and I started owning, and I own a business and treated it like a business. Then things started changing, and I started bringing people in who could help me learn the things I didn't know. And so I'm still doing that now, investing in people who can help me continue to, because what I've done over the years, I can't do that, but I've got to keep building and adapting to keep that progress, because the progress, like I said, like I've been going like this and I'm like, "Rah!" So now I'm getting ready for this part right now.
Totally.
So that's what I mean by not linear, because it does, like I said, it on any, because businesses are hard. And I think the fact is that I'm somebody who likes to control everything.
Right.
And I think real estate is like God's joke on me, because I control nothing.
Of
mean,
course.
at the end, I work, and in our life, that's the way. I mean, I work like I control it all, and I try to control my controllables, right? And I try to put everything in place so that I minimize any risk for my clients, for myself, all the things. But at the end of the day, I'm not in control.
No.
And I've got to be able to relinquish that. And I've also got to know when it does blow up, I'm still okay. My kids are still okay. I think about it like sometimes I'm like, what's the worst thing that happens? I'm like, they can't take my kids or my dogs. I mean, like,
Correct.
I don't know. I mean, like, I'll be all right. I've rebuilt now. I mean, if everything burned to the ground, I would build again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's what I think.
And I think that's great because, like I said, I went into entrepreneurship with these rose-colored glasses. Like what you just said did not apply to me. Like I was watching my business coach at the time went from like $1 million to 2 million to 10 million overnight. And like this is all happening during COVID, right? And it's like hockey stick growth everywhere. And I was unprepared for what you seem to be very prepared for. And so for me, Bethany, it had me questioning my self-worth, my decisions. Am I good? Is this my fault? Like nobody sat me down and had that conversation. We're like, no, yeah, it happens. And how you allow that to, how you emotionally handle that determines whether or not you climb back up. Right. And to me, that's what, like for you were like, we'll just figure it out. And so I was shocked when that happened to me. Cause I was like, I don't know what all you other assholes are doing. This ain't that hard. Right. And then it was like, kaboom,
Shit.
I know. Oh, yeah. Course correct, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it was such a blessing. There's so much to be learned in those moments, right? Like I wouldn't be having this conversation with you, doing what I'm doing right now if that hadn't happened. If I had just continued to have hockey stick growth, I would be sitting on my piles of money and I would be miserable and overweight and very unhappy in my life, right? So, it all worked out the way it was supposed to. But like what you just said is not as common knowledge as it feels like to you. When you're like, the rest of us over here are like, that's not what we were prepared for. We were told it was a fairy tale. And now that we have the internet and this is so easy and this is so fun, and you're like, no, that's not it. So that's why you're like, my story's not that interesting. I'm like, no, you don't realize it because like you said, you didn't have a choice. And when you don't have a choice, you figure shit out in a way that somebody who's like, or somebody who has a spouse to fall back on, or somebody who is like, yep, I can see the writing on the wall in the next 90 days, my pipeline looks like shit. So I'm gonna go get a job, right? Like there's plenty of people that will do that and not just double down.
Well, but at the end of the day, my kids deserve more. And that is, back in the old, I sold Arbonne for a minute and a half, a long time ago. But they always say when you in any of those businesses and MLMs or even in real estate, if you don't have a why that makes you cry, and like those days that just suck, you don't push through, you give up, or you go get a job. And I mean, like you said, I'll cry at a commercial. But like, talking about my kids, I mean, my kids, I will make my kids, and I probably, if I think about my dogs long enough, they'd probably make me cry too. But
right.
So,
but I love that. Like,
but that's the thing is like, I want them to have choices. And so like, I don't get a chance to phone in like not with it today, because that's not gonna feed them. It's not gonna put them through school. It's not gonna give them choices. And I want them to have choices, not because my choices blew up on me and didn't work out so well. And I also don't want them to ever think that choices that sometimes we made or were made for us, that defines you. Because I think I don't, I'm not a fan of excuses. I'm a fan of owning your stuff and changing your stars. So only you can do that. And like I said, I'm not a fan of entitlement. I'm not like all the things, so I think you just get out there and keep going. And that's to me, like, if it wasn't for them, I don't know what I would have done. I would have a lot of money because they cost a lot of money. So I don't know.
Well,
I'm like,
there's
I
that,
don't
but
know. There's that. Like, so
to go back to what you said, because I don't know if I've ever heard anybody in real estate say that, Bethany, about like the difference between being self-employed and running a business. Because again, in my head, and I tell all my real estate agent friends and clients, like, I just hang out with a lot of realtors. I am not one. So there's a lot about the business I don't know. And to me, it's always kind of been a business. Like, I think of it like you're running a business, but is that not the traditional mindset?
Well, I think it is for people. I'm sure people who are very successful. Yeah. But I think when you start, if you are not a business person, like I said, my background is sciences. And so you start making that money and nobody tells you exactly how to allocate it and where to go with it and what,
Yeah.
and what
Okay.
to put away and how to structure your business accounts and all that stuff. So you're making, and then as your single mom, you're like, well, I gotta make sure gotta plug the, I gotta, you got to plug the gaps and you've got to pay the bills. And I didn't make the best decisions initially in how I allocated that. And so I do think there's a lot of people who don't learn how to run a business.
Sure.
They just take their checks.
Right. Okay.
The other thing is the real estate agents are really good at not investing in their business. Like whether it's in branding and marketing, whether it's in coaching,
Yeah.
whether it's in, so they don't put money back. And that's and you have to do that on a regular basis and you have to be very strategic about it. So, and then, also being strategic about aligning yourself with people who are at or above where you are.
Yes.
And continually looking for opportunities to grow. And so I think when you look at the fact that what is over 80% of realtors quit within 2 or 3 years or whatever it is, it's akin
And
to
the
owning
number
a
that like
restaurant.
don't sell a house ever, or
On average, say that I think they said last year the average agent sold 4 or 5 houses, something like that. Which I don't know how you. If that's vacation money, great. Or maybe they're really big houses. I don't know. maybe they're so. But all that to say, most people couldn't support a family on 4 houses a year.
sure.
But I do. I just think that I see it a lot that people are paycheck to paycheck, and they're not treating it as a business. And I was taught younger that hobbies cost you money and businesses make you money.
Ooh.
I think a lot of people treat real estate like a hobby.
Sure. Well, and the ones who are selling 4 or 5 houses a year, it is a hobby, right? Like again, it's a side gig, or somebody else is paying the bills, or you know what I'm saying, or
Yeah.
they're,
and that's fine because it's different strokes for different folks. Like everybody, we're not
there's
all
no
going to have the
judgment of
same
it at all.
goal, And I think, that's, for me, I just, like I said, I don't do anything a little bit. I do everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm an all in. So I didn't start real estate. I didn't start anything. I got divorced. I didn't have kids so that I'd have them part time. So, having my kids all the time, to me, like I want all the things all the time. I want them my way.
Yeah.
So, and with real estate, I love what I do, but I don't do anything just a little bit. So, and if I'm going to do anything, I want to be the best that I can be. I don't think I can be the best I'm not like the Simone Biles of real estate, but I want to be the best that I can be.
Yeah.
And
but I think that's healthy.
Yeah.
Like I always say that competition isn't real, right? Like in the work that I do, like from an energetic perspective, like I don't believe, well, if Bethany sells 50 houses, that means that there's less for so-and-so. And I know that like it just, everybody who's willing to get up and show up and commit to themselves and do the work, right? We can all thrive. Like I believe that very, very much.
Oh yeah. There's plenty for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's the attitude behind that, right? Because there's a lot of people who see it as a competition and see it as, if that person got that opportunity, then they took it away from me. And the way I believe it is like, that just wasn't your opportunity, right? Like I'm a big fan of energy and energy matches, and nothing that is meant for you will pass you by. And so if somebody else got that opportunity, it was not your opportunity, right? It was theirs. You were not an energetic match, and they were.
Yeah. Not my boat.
My belief system behind it. What's, you're starting off the year quieter than you would like, which I appreciate that for sharing that. I think vulnerability is so important though, because again, you got a lot of noise and a lot of publicity because you had a great, like, that's how I heard your name. I was sitting at a table in Texas and they're like, oh yeah, that girl in Missouri, she's not far from you, right? Like that's I heard your name. And they're like, hey, last year she this, you know. And so there is just the emotional intelligence, the emotional capacity to ride that out. And that's a big part of my work with my clients, right? Like I of course want to set my clients up to win more often than they lose, but it's also the ability to hold the disappointment, right? And not let it break you, you know.
Yeah.
And it feels like that's what you're doing really beautifully. But what you're also doing really beautifully is you're playing to win, right? Like what I heard you say about a lot of people is they play to not lose.
Yeah.
And Bethany plays to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so even when you fall short or shit falls apart or you have a bad quarter or a deal goes, you know, down the toilet or whatever, when you're playing to win, you know, even when you come up a little short, you're still farther ahead than playing to not lose.
Yeah. 100%. Agreed.
So
That,
what,
I mean,
you know,
maybe I'll tattoo that somewhere.
yeah, let's we ever get a chance to hang out together. Can we go get tattooed?
Yeah, probably.
Can we like play to win? I have my cute little butterflies on my wrist right here. These are one for each of my kids. That's what they're there. Butterflies
These are my
kids.
kids.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. You know, I'm like, we can get new tattoos. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
So what's the focus then, you know, for this year? There's a lot of changes happening in the industry. You made a brokerage change at the end of last year. You know, tell us kind of what's on the horizon for 25.
So for 25, you know, I'm actually looking right now. This year I brought on another agent who is working with me as an assistant. I've got some new people who have come over to Real. So at this point, I'm actually I'm looking to continue to not only grow my business, but help them grow theirs. Because to me, mentoring is a big deal. And changing their stars, if you will. You know, I mean, getting them to go on vacation or, pay off a school loan or whatever, but whatever it is. And so growing that intentionally, I don't want to grow a massive team of any kind, but, I'm just looking at opportunities to continue to elevate my business and what I'm offering to my clients. I'm also considering just, where do I want to add on and where am I going to focus my time? So at this point, I'm also big into balancing so that I'm present for my family. So I'm really happy with it where I am, but I am looking to eclipse what I did last year, just because if you're not first, you're last. I mean, and I don't, not against other people, but against myself. If I'm not moving forward, then I feel like I am dropping the ball for myself. And I also am trying to be intentional about building relationships and here and in other parts of the country, and aligning with people and that was a big part of me leaving my brokerage and going to Real, meeting with, aligning with the Texas ladies and with Kansas City ladies, is that they are pushing me to be better than I was. And they're in places in their business that I want to be. And so I just am trying to run behind them and hang on to them. And
none of them would say that about you. None of them feel like you're running behind them. You guys are all running together, which I think is just
I
cool.
think it's also, and I think it's also just looking at opportunities. And, I got to speak at a couple things last year. I'm not trying to become some international speaker, but I love the opportunity to get to talk to, like, this is a fabulous thing. I do think it's interesting because I'm always like, I don't know what people would want to hear from me, but I'm happy to talk about whatever. I mean, I'll talk all day.
That's why I like you.
I know. I enjoy I think I'm funny. So, I would like to, I am enjoying helping other people build their businesses. And so I'm not sure what that's going to look like, but I would like to be intentional in helping other people because yes, I would like to have more, just because more helps me. You know what? There's that great, the great myth of security, right? But having more means I can do more. And then, and this year also, I've taken on some responsibilities with some charity organizations and with my daughter's school. So I'm looking at, giving back more to my communities in other ways. So those are places where I'm hoping that I can invest time into people and things that mean a lot to me and be impactful in my region, because I have to have more than just my business. And pretty soon, I mean, I can't believe I'm going to say it, but like, it's not very far that I'll be an empty nester, which is weird. I know. I know, because I don't know who I am without them. So
Sure.
I've only got a little year and a half left before I've got my kids all gone. So
Wild.
I know. I guess I'll adopt more dogs. I don't know. I won't. I won't.
Like, don't do that. Once you're an empty nester, you do not adopt dogs. You travel. That's what you do.
Travel. I know. I know. And it actually, with everybody driving, I've never had freedom like this in my whole life. I don't, like, I'm like, oh, and people are like, you want to go to a conference? I'm like, absolutely. Let's go.
Yeah. That's so fun. That's so cool. I'm obviously on the front end of it with my kids being little, but I am still experiencing freedom in that, like, we can get up in the morning and they can run their routine and I don't have to run it for them. Like, so I can only imagine what it looks like on the other end, right? Where I'm like, go upstairs, get dressed, brush your teeth, put your dirty clothes in the hamper and come down, and like all those instructions get followed. I'm like, this is banana. It's not always perfect, right? But like, so I can only imagine as they grow and like being on the other side of it. Cause I feel that way. I'm like, my mornings are super easy. I sit in my chair and I drink my cup of coffee and they go do their thing. And then I make sure everything was done right. And then I push them out the door onto the bus.
I know. Think about as they get older, you're going to be like, and now you can make my coffee. Now you can unload the dishwasher. You can do all the things.
I know.
I mean, older kids are amazing. I've loved every age with my kids. They've all been so special, but it is a whole different thing when they are independent.
Yeah.
And mobile without you.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Because I've been tethered to children who had to be driven like 4 hours a day my whole life.
Sure.
I literally just look around, like I'm here now and not driving like from school or swim practice, which is
it's 5 p.m. on a Wednesday. Yeah, you should be taking somebody somewhere.
What are you doing? I should be, but I'm like, whoo! I'm like, maybe I'm going to happy. I don't know. I can do anything I want.
This is a fun feeling though. Like, and that's probably where the creativity is coming from, right? Like, what do I do with my time now? And I feel like that's, seasons of life that happens, right? We free up one thing and then the creativity comes in and then, we fill the space and then you'll fill it again and it'll just be really beautiful and fun. So, well, I appreciate your time and your story and your vulnerability because, like I said, I do think what I really aspire to do in the podcast interviews I have been doing is share real stories of people who are winning for sure, but sharing all of the parts of the story because, again, we see the winners and we see the winning, but we don't often see the journey that got us to winning. And so my heart is really in sharing those. So people who are in a tough season or who are questioning, what the hell am I doing with my life? Can see that like, hey, these people landed, in really great places, even though not everything was perfect. Because again, I think social media, I love social media for so many things, but I do think it's created very unrealistic expectations of what it looks like to be successful in business. Because again, we only share the good shit, right? We only share the under contracts and just sold and, new listing and, all like closers cruise is the big thing I'm seeing in my social media content right now. Like, I'm like, okay,
are you going?
Cool. I'm going to apply to speak.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm going to apply to speak.
I know. I was looking at that too, and I would love to. Those are the best people in the world are going to be on that cruise, so that would be amazing. I know. I'm trying to figure out how that works because it's I know. I've got to figure out with my daughter's last year of school. So
yeah,
and she's a swimmer, and that's a big swim time. So
season, okay, I get it. Well, where can people want to follow you, learn from you, hang out with you, just hear more about your story? Where's the best place to connect with you, Bethany?
Probably Instagram. It's Sweet Home STL. So that is, or you can follow me. I mean, that's probably the best place because, on Facebook, Bethany DeMaggio. So I'm pretty basic.
Beautiful. Well, it was so good to spend time with you. Thanks for sharing your heart. Thanks for sharing your magic. I'm really grateful for it.
Thanks for having me. Talk soon.
Thank you for tuning in to the Uncensored Self podcast. If you're walking away with a new perspective, some fresh inspiration, or the push you needed to show up as your uncensored self, I'd love to hear about it. Share this episode, leave a review, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember, success isn't about following somebody else's rules. It's about owning who you are, deciding what you want, and going after it unapologetically. Until next time, keep leading, keep creating, and stay uncensored.